Welcome to another edition of Inspiring Life Journeys, where we talk with people about their journeys through life, their ups and downs, and what they've accomplished and what we can all learn from them. Before we begin, just a little intro. Today, our guest is the renowned artist Patricia Gagic. She is an internationally lauded for her work as one of Canada's most exceptional communicators, as an award-winning contemporary artist. You can read all about her in our description over there, but without further ado, I'm going to bring on Patricia because she's got so much to share, and I'd like you to take full advantage of all that she's got to share with us today.
Hello.
Hi, welcome, Patricia. Welcome to today's show. So glad to have you here with us today.
Excited to be here. Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, we've known each other for a while, and I've always been amazed at your accomplishments in the various things that you've been, the awards that you've received, the new things that you're launching out, and stepping out and doing things that you haven't done before. So listeners are going to have a great time listening to all your accomplishments. So before we get started, I just want to let everybody know to go ahead and share this and like it and share the video so that people can listen to Patricia as well. So Patricia, our journeys in life really starts from the time we were young, right? From the time we were in our early childhood to the teenage years and all through life. But let's take a look at your journey through maybe through your early 20s.
Wow. It's great. Thank you. I feel like I was born an adult, if that makes any sense. Like when I was a small child, I had big visions. I used to think I could do things, that I shouldn't be able to do. And I think that was really part of my atrocious attitude about life. Like, well, I can do it. I simply can do it. My father and my mom, so they got married really, really young. Like my mother was like 16 years old. My dad was 10 years older. So a little bit of a gap, but they were very, very interested in making sure that my sister and I would see the world and be able to have these experiences. Now, he was an accountant and actually worked for a hotel chain that required us to live in various places. So I was born in Montreal. We moved to Toronto. From Toronto, we moved to Omaha, Nebraska. So I did start of some of my schooling in Omaha, Nebraska. And then went to London, Ontario, also came back to Hamilton, Ontario. But my parents made sure that for all the holidays and anytime there was a reason to jump in our Rambler, we would get in the car and he would just drive and we'd land in South Dakota, Mount Rushmore, North Dakota, Minot, North Dakota. Like we just went places and I felt the urge at all times, to make sure that I continued that. So, but I always was an artist. I was drawing I know Elizabethan ball gowns when I was like 3 and 4 years old. I could not stop this vision of these very exotic dresses. And so I think that was the start. Reading comic books. I was super addicted to every comic book there was. And then when you realize that, life is starting to take hold and you're in high school and, a few bumps in the road there, just a few bumps, lost some very important people in my life. And at the same time, I was super into sports. So I was a gymnast. I played tennis. I played racquetball. I was a golfer. All of those things just kept me thriving. So the spirit of, challenge was there. So before my early 20s, I had the vision of, in addition to being an artist, having a real job. So I got a job at a bank and I was a bank teller. And that just didn't seem to fit because I wanted to sit in that Oval Office. I wanted to be the bank manager. And that's where I took my crazy journey, riding up the ivory tower. And I became a bank manager when I was 25 years old. And then I had 92 employees, one of the third largest branches in Canada. I really saw women going back, to the 70s, which was where I landed in my 20s, that I could do it. And there were many, many men who were supportive. I had a lot of mentors and role models. Not that many women, but again, it was the time when women were starting to, look for their new jobs and to be able to walk into an arena of discomfort. So that kind of took me there. And I think the post area for me was, I also had an accident. I was actually in Saskatchewan. I got on this horse. This is back when I was about 22, and the horse got spooked, and went onto the Trans-Canada Highway, and I ended up having to make a decision. I was either going to be thrown in front of this transport truck that was coming towards us, and the horse was really out of control, like racing at 35 miles an hour. So I slid off the back of the horse onto the highway, and I pretty much believe I died because I was unconscious, and I had a period of time where I started to come back to life. And right after that, I think my understanding of mortality and immortality became a reality. But it was a very, very significant impact on my life. Yeah.
That must have been a really scary situation to, and be able to think to what to do, and, being able to take that courage to slide off that horse really saved your life, I believe, right?
Well, it saved my life, took my life. I really do believe that, when I started to come back, I was drowning. And yet then all of a sudden I had complete recollection. I knew what had happened. I knew I had no memory loss. There was no impact for me. I broke my nose. That was pretty much the only thing. My body was completely bruised. But here's the thing, I was a gymnast. So maybe my body was, used to being in some kind of a contortion, and I must have rolled well enough that, I didn't break any other bones. So one of the little tricks of the world, be a gymnast.
Yeah. Yeah. Just listening to your stories, even when you were growing up, I love that you remember all those road trips that you took to all the different places, and you have such great memories, because I think a lot of people have those memories of, especially in those days. Even when my kids were growing up, we would take them on road trips, and they still remember those, right? So those are precious memories that your parents have given you.
We used to, I think on a Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon after church, my dad would say, "All right, we're getting in the car, we're going." And if it was in the fall, he would just take us for hours and hours into these forests where we would find every conceivable leaf. We had to name them. We had to bring them home. We had to put them in wax paper. We had to steam them, iron them, and have our little collection. He was a very gentle, I would say he was sort of a semi-eccentric man. He was, my roots were from Poland, Russia, Ukraine. Everything was occupied, Austria-Hungary at the time. So when we grew up with multiple nationalities, and the interests that my father had were, that we should learn how to speak the languages. So I went to Polish school. I had to learn to sing in Polish, and I sang in the church choir in Polish. Didn't understand a word of what I was singing, but apparently I was doing an okay job. And then he had this passion, though. This is the thing that was so funny. He had a passion for the bagpipes. And so Sunday afternoons, there we would be sitting there. Mom would be making the roast beef and potato dinner, and my dad would have the stereo cranked with his bagpipes playing. And then, so very fond memories. The sad part for me is that on just after my 25th birthday, my father passed away. He had a massive coronary when he was only 52 years old and didn't recover. So that was a massive loss. My mom was only 43 years old.
Mhm.
became a widow. So we really had a huge gap in our life after that, and but super fond memories that I can cherish. And my dad was pretty silly. He always, when I lived out west, he would, at the time, because we didn't have cell phones or anything, he would get those little cassette tapes.
Mhm.
He would then, he and my mom would do a whole series of something called station, CASE, radio stations. And that was, my dad was this broadcaster guy, and it was Joe McSeminik, and they would video the weather, the news, tell me all the stuff that's going on, as if this was a radio station. And I, about, I guess maybe about 10 years ago, I found the bag. There's probably 50 or 60 recordings of my
Oh,
mom and
wow.
dad. They would send them every week, because talking on the phone was expensive then, long
Yeah.
distance, right?
Uh-huh.
So the tapes were the way that I got the news. And so I
Oh, that's
cherish,
great.
yeah.
Uh-huh. I was just going to ask you, do you have that with you, or have any memories? So that's a beautiful uh, memento that you have of your life growing up there that
Yeah.
I'm sure you can preserve for years and years. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
But just listening to your story, even from as a child, how you partook in a lot of activities and stuff, and then you stepped out into the banking world, in a world where it wasn't very common to have women in the thing, and rose up to that, just shows that you're a go-getter. I think that's what I see you as, really a go-getter here.
A little feisty.
Yeah, that's great. So, did your passion for the art, I know you had it as well, did it continue throughout the years? And what was it like? When did you really step into more of the artist in you and be doing more of that?
I love to draw. So
Mhm.
having pen and ink for me, doing pointillism drawings was there was the easiest thing. I didn't really get into painting until actually I was in my late, I would say in my mid 30s. And yeah, early to mid 30s, I started painting, and that became an obsession. I truly, and I wanted to do everything with oil paint. I didn't know what I was doing at all. So, you again, we were just at the point where we were starting to, have search engines that you could, find information, but books. And, I went to McMaster University. I took some courses, the Dundas Valley School of Art. But my really super unbelievable moment in life came when uh, my husband kept saying he wanted to go to Paris. He wanted to go to France. And in the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Globe and Mail newspaper, there was every single weekend an ad for this sunflower apartment in La
Mm.
Bigoude in France. And I think he had cut them out every single week. And there had to be 300 of them sitting by our phone. And I was in Toronto. I was now with the Meg Gallery in Toronto on Morrow Avenue. And I came home and he said, well, we're going to France. I've done it. And this man's going to phone you, and you're going to go to Toronto, and you're going to go and talk to him and get all the information about this place. And I'm like, okay. So I did end up going to visit Mr. Waney, and he took me through his home. He had a 3-story, beautiful, incredible home. And I'm looking at the artwork, and he said, oh, you're an artist too. And I said, yes. And he said, well, would you like to see all the work? I said, let's go. So we're walking through his house. We get up to the 3rd floor, and I'm looking, I'm serious. This man has like an art gallery in his home.
Mm.
On the 3rd floor, I see this painting of a white horse, beautiful, extremely, extremely unusual, not just a regular horse painting, because that wouldn't have appealed to me. And I look at the name on the painting, and it said Dragic, which is Dragic in Serbian. And I said to Mr. Waney, oh, he's Serbian. He goes, oh my goodness, no, he's French, Dragic. And I'm like, okay, Dragic. And he goes, yes, he lives in Savoyon near Mont Ventoux, maybe about three hours away from La Bigoude. And I said, I don't even know, Shanta, I don't know what came over me, but it was that moment of kind of the karma piece. And I said,
Mhm.
I want to meet him. And he said, oh, okay, well, maybe we can make that happen. He doesn't usually see very many people, but maybe we can try and help you. So we go to La Bigoude de Mazenc. We're now in the Sunflower apartment. And I asked Ulrika, Mr. Wayne's wife, if she would phone Monsieur Dragic, and she did, and he said, no, I'm not interested in seeing any people. And I'm like, that's not going to work for me. So, of course, we ended up having another conversation, and then we did visit him, and we were late, and that wasn't good either. But I walked into his atelier. So, Savoyon is a little tiny 5th century village and in Provence. And I walk into his unbelievable home, this turret with the cement, like the stone walls, and I'm just completely blown away. But when I get into his atelier, I see paintings, and I see his name on these huge posters with Christo, Picasso, Atlan, Alvarez. And I'm going, okay, this man is like major, major art. I'm so completely intimidated and didn't think I belonged in that room, but it was a pleasure to meet him. On the way out to walk us to our car, he said to my husband, he doesn't speak English, and he said, what does she want? And does she want money? Does she want fame? What does she want? And of course, my husband said, she just wants to know how to paint better. Uh-huh. And he said, she has to learn how to speak French. I'll give her 1 week of my time. I don't teach people. I have no interest in that. He'd been invited multiple times to teach at Les Beaux-Arts and has significant galleries that he was exhibiting with and people. And so I hired a tutor when I got home. I had 38 hours of Provençal French, and we did go back, and I spent that week with him, and it was unbelievable. And at the end of that week, he invited me to come back again and again. So since 1999, I've been multiple times a year going back and forth and spending a week with him. We had an exhibition together in 2011. And that was, a huge deal for me to have that exhibition with him. It was curated by Monsieur Lavie, who is a very important art historian there. And then he just said, no, there's not much more I can teach you. We've gone from oils to acrylic. We use the Matisse palette. And now he calls me Maestro. And we're very, very, very close friends. He's quite an eccentric man. Still is alive and exhibiting. And that was like an amazing, amazing blessing for me. But from that experience of going to that one trip, it, opened up the whole plethora of every time now that we're in France, we want to get in the car and go and see more places and do things. So yeah, I'm so grateful, so blessed, and could not have imagined how that one painting of a horse on a wall has completely, converted my entire life into a path that I never, ever, ever could have ever imagined. I mean, it's surreal. It's too surreal. I'm still sitting there pinching myself.
Yeah, you saw that and you knew what you wanted and you asked for it, right? So
yeah, I guess the energy of the karma of that horse. And what's really weird is that the horse actually was his horse. It was Attila. And Dragan at the time would stand on the back straight up on the horse and just ride it across the fields in Provence. I mean, really, like, he was Don Quixote. I mean, this was so wild. Yeah. So there's significance to paying attention sometimes to what you're really, really called to, or being in that recognition of, I could have walked past the painting and just said, what, oh, that's lovely. It's, Dragic, and just kept going. But there was a massive magnet that just made and pulled me. And when he said no, he didn't want to see me, don't do that to me. Because that's made it even more. I have to meet this man. So, and yeah, now we're besties and I love him. And he truly changed my life. Totally changed my life.
Oh, that's awesome. When did this start? I don't recall.
1999.
So you still got that relationship and that mentorship going. So that's an awesome thing.
Yeah.
Now that was just one piece of your your life when you in Paris, but you've done a lot more in Paris, and you've showcased your art in some amazing places. So you want to talk about a couple of places that your art has been accepted and displayed in?
Yes. Oh, so there, I mean, there's a multiplicity of things that happen, but it is, I'll just say this, it's up to you yourself, how far you decide you want to go, and then showing up. So I was invited to exhibit at one of the first biennales in Firenze, in Florence. And I met BB International Fine Arts. And when I met the people who were organizing their own exhibitions, they were responsible for Europe Art Genève, many exhibitions in different places that I never would have dreamt that my artwork could be seen at. So I did Geneva, Korea, we did Germany. Like, I can't even think right now. There's too many of them, but I was able to participate in some of those art fairs with BB International, and that was really significant. Also, then in Paris, actually, I also had the opportunity to work with Bénédicte Lacat, and she has an organization. She's very involved and lives in Cannes, involved in the art world, also as a historian. And she had invited to take my work on to various art fairs. So we did Monaco, Monte Carlo. But there was an application that was two of them. One is for the Academic Society, Arts, Sciences, and Letters in Paris. And you have to have a pretty significant, accolades and exhibition experience in order for you to be given something from them. And also, I'm not from France, although I've been studying with a master. And I was the recipient of the silver medal and the pewter medal, two medals at the Academic Society. So I'm now waiting this year, hopefully, for another recognition in October. But Bénédicte also took my photography. So in addition to doing painting, I also love photography, and she took one of my pieces to the SNBA, the Salon National Beaux-Arts, which is held, it's now in its 166th year, I think, in Paris, at the Louvre, in the Carousel du Louvre. And they're just like, this is like way over the top in the art world.
Mm-hmm.
And we submitted my photograph, and amongst 40,000 photographs that are submitted, I actually won the gold medal. I won the highest award. This was, I think, in 2018, 2019. So that was another one of those moments where, pinch me again, did this just really happen? So first female, first Canadian female to ever have received that award. Now, the photography component, I don't think has been more than 25 years. Previously, it was always sculpture, paintings, but not anything. So this was a really relatively new category, but nonetheless, an achievement that I really cherish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's great. What an honor to be the first of so many different things, right? The first one to be able to have your displayed there, and the first female from Canada. That's such an accomplishment.
Yeah.
But lately, you've also had something done at the Vatican. So that was an amazing thing that happened for you.
Yeah. So those were the three Black Madonnas, and they were drawings that I did them in 2007, I think, 2006, 2007, while I was in St. Martin on a holiday. And again, get a pen in my hand. I can't stop. I had memorized the first 300 numbers of the golden mean. So pi 5 plus 1 and pi 5 minus 1. So 1.6180339887498948840, and it goes on and on. So I love that so much that I started to draw the numbers in these patterns that became very angelic entities. And I did the three of them. And when I got back, a friend of mine, Nadine Lucky, said to me, "These are so beautiful. They're so spiritual and sacred. They should be in the Vatican." And she was very good friends with somebody who was actually involved with Pope John Paul, and they agreed. And so they came from Rome. They were in Toronto. There was a dinner organized. They had a representative of the Pope there, and I presented the three images, and they were framed and whatnot, and they took them back to the Vatican. And so they are part of the archives of the Vatican Art Museum. And so that's where they are forever.
I've seen those three prints that you've done, and those are so intricate and so amazing. And it must have taken you a while to do those, but they are so beautiful. So can people find that on your website or likes of it?
I think so. My website actually is just completely being revamped because I've not paid attention to it. You know, when you do other things, there are so many things in social media, and you know, just and I run solo. It's like you're doing this all by yourself. So having the time to update and upgrade everything can take a bit. So soon it will be.
Yeah, no, those are, and what an honor to have that. Then how many can say that you've had your art in the archives of the Vatican? It's such an honor there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So Patricia, in addition to excuse me, the art of creativity, you're also a percussionist. Tell me how you got into that, because that wasn't until your later years.
Yes.
There we go.
Drummer girl.
Uh-huh.
I've loved music forever. I've had I played guitar, I think, you know, early 70s, always, you know, messing around with music, a super crazy music obsessed person. Have a piano, don't play it very well, embarrassing probably. But I always loved drumming. I could sit and tap everything I listened to, I always heard the drum beat first. And then I was really lucky to reconnect with a friend who I'd known since I was 12 years old, actually, who is a professional drummer, percussionist, and artist. And in that conversation said to me, you know, well, why don't you just sit down behind a drum kit and see what it feels like? I'd never done that. And my cousin Paul is actually a professional drummer. That's his only job ever, more or less ever, has a band, Trick Bag. And I'd never even considered doing that. So I did. I actually sat behind a drum kit, and I can't even explain to you what happened, but all the synapses just seemed to come together, and I could follow, you know, the basic. And then I decided that's what I needed to do, is to actually own a drum kit. And that's an addiction. Shanta, there is no question. And if Ryan Duswalt is ever going to hear this, he's going to say, yep, 100% it is. So then I, you know, decided that I just needed a little bit more equipment. So I've been buying all kinds of different, you know, pieces, crashes, and I won't think at this point in time that with my age that I'll ever be in a band. But I can definitely say that I have a massive appreciation for that. And it's just something that changes your thinking pattern about everything, because you have to, there's a mathematics involved in drumming. And you also have to separate your hands and your feet, because they're all doing something different at the same time. So once you kind of can get into that rhythm, then there's comfort. And I'm a maniac. I'm a total maniac. Yeah.
So do you get to work on it kind of every day, or how are you doing this now?
I wouldn't say, I wish it was every day. Of course, in the very beginning, it was like an obsession. And I do have 2 drum kits in my studio. I have a Gretsch Renown and also a Sonar SQ1 kit. So and they both have two different sounds. And so I can, you know, manifest what sound I'm feeling like at the time. But when I'm in the studio, for the most part, I do try to, you know, play. And especially if my art partner, my teacher, Greg, is there, then he definitely will, you know, get me going, and we'll play off one another. And that's, you know, it's beautiful. I just love that. Yeah, I could be here forever. That could be the only thing I ever want to do. It's truly the only thing. I could give up painting just so I could drum.
And you said about you may never be on a band. Oh, you never know.
I don't know.
With your accomplishment and your drive, you may soon be playing in a band, drums.
You know what? I can't see that actually, but I have been. Who knows? I mean, it's confidence. That's I think with anything. Somebody will say, just go and do whatever, and you're a perfectionist. But there's also that level of comfort when you know that you know something well enough that it's like what James Barber says, all of a sudden he's on the stage and he forgets the words, but he just keeps going. And there's a comfort in knowing that you can actually, do that. I'm still at the stage, I think, that if I was in a band and I started doing something wrong, the drummer actually carries the entire movement of the sound. Like everybody's listening for what the drummer's doing. So I would have to be really, really confident. And I just don't think I'm there yet. Having too much fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
As they say, keep your day job.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So you're also an author, and one of the books that you've written was on, what was the title of that?
So, and again, this is something I had never ever expected that I would do, but being part of Craig Duswalt's Rockstar Marketing original group, going back like 12, 13 years ago, was a pivotal time, because he had come up with this write a book in 30 days, and he put a challenge out to many people. And I decided that I was going to try and do it, not because I've had so many unusual things happen, and not all of them are really good. I'm not getting into it right now, but there were a lot of moments in my life which were pretty terrorizing, I would say. And I thought if I could write a book that would help people to hear the message differently. So the book is called Karmic Alibi: Gaining Expedient Wisdom by Leaving Your Excuses Behind. So I thought if people read my story and they look at me and think, oh my God, she went through that and she doesn't have PTSD, and or maybe I do and I don't know it. Either that or I'm super schizophrenic and just have multiple personalities. Not quite. But the book it's a nonfiction narrative, and I won a few awards with it. Didn't really push the book, but being in that capacity, I wrote a second book called Karma in Cash, which is going to be rewritten. And now I'm working on several other books: The Black Snowflake, another book called Thirsters and Quenchers, and How to Be Human Today. And that's a collaboration that I'm doing. So yeah, I love writing for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So, it looks like you've got a few books ongoing, and I didn't realize that you had some more coming up. So that's awesome that we can look forward to that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Switching gears now to your work, because you're a Rotarian and ambassador for the People's Improvement Organization of Cambodia.
Yes.
I was so intrigued when I first heard your story about how you got involved in Cambodia and your work that you've done. I'm sure our listeners would love to hear your journey, right from your inception to that thought of wanting to go to Cambodia, and what it is right now.
I had, when I worked for the bank, there was a young girl, this again in the early 70s, a young girl was hired, and she came from Cambodia. And there was something special about her, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but she was very quiet, oftentimes quite sad, but she was just so brilliant. And I really liked her. I found out that she literally had her entire family had been murdered by Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge, during the time of the regime. And she escaped, and she was able to get into Canada and live with a family. So that was my first feelings. And then you never saw that much about what was going on, and anything that you did see, I mean, the whole genocide was so horrific. That stayed with me. Fast forward to 2006, a friend of mine, Kathy, who had been writing a book called Markawasi, the Stone Forest of Peru, decided she was going to have her book printed in Thailand because it would have been less expensive, and all the things that she was doing, it just led her there. And in our conversation together, I said, well, if you're going to be in Thailand, you should go to Cambodia, to Angkor Wat. It's one of the wonders of the world to me. It would be amazing. And she said, I'll think about it. Well, she decided that she was close enough. It's only a small flight. So she got into Cambodia, went to Angkor Wat, and spent the day. And as she's coming down to the south end of the Angkor, she walks around in the jungle area and sees a little blue sign that says School for Poor Children and Orphans. And then she saw a cement pad was laying on the ground amongst all of these, horrible small little huts and buildings. And so she saw this monk and she said to him, what's going on here? And he said, oh, Master Kawan, who is the gatekeeper of Angkor and generation wise, is going to be shut down because UNESCO is coming in. And of course, many things are changing to improve. And this is really an eyesore. So we don't know what to do, except that because the books and folklore, the Buddhist folklore, the Cambodian folklore and the Buddhist teachings were all going to be destroyed, the monks at the time actually wrote them on these wreaths, and then they buried them in the stupas underground. And so after 25 years of the, Khmer Rouge no longer in power, Master Kawan felt that it was time that they could be taken out. And if he built a library, he could have them in the library so that it would be beautiful and he wouldn't be shut down or sent himself to Phnom Penh. And Kathy said, well, how much money do you need? And he said, $5,000. And so she got her cell phone out and she called me and she said, Patricia, I need $5,000. And I said, oh my God, were you robbed? She goes, no, you're building a library. So that's how it happened. And then and then we just kept helping. 2007, I had an opportunity to go on a trip all the way from Beijing, all the way down before the Olympics to Shanghai. And I said, well, I want to go to Cambodia. It's close enough that I could do that. So I went to Cambodia. I met Master Kawan. I saw the library. I was just in complete overwhelm because I saw what needed to be done. And that's where it triggered me into asking Master Kawan if he could make a list of what they needed. And they needed showers. They had no washrooms. They had no places to sleep. They were living on these huts with these roofs, so we started. So in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, we just kept fixing and fixing and fixing. And I had a few friends that supported me along the way. So we were able to get things done. We built a school for the nuns and the monks. And then for the very, very first time after, over 25 years, all of the nuns and the monks from Vietnam, as well as from Cambodia, all came to Angkor and they held a ceremony. And the ceremony lasted for 3 days. And I purchased all the materials so that they would all wear white robes and new robes. And there were over 300 that came, and they lit candles and they really chanted and prayed for the spilled blood to be healed for the country. And it was all videoed. And I think that was, if you think about life-changing moments where you can make a decision to do something that could really help heal people, that was big for me. And then after that, I've gone a few times back and forth, but we also then progressed into a place called Buang Miala, and we built an innovation house there. This was a landmine locked little region. And once the landmines had all been cleared, they found 50 families. The children had not ever seen a book or a pencil or pen. So we started that with a small library. And then from there, Tani Pyung, who is my contact in Cambodia since 2006, he started a small school in Village Rameus, which we are still operating. We have every day about 50 children that show up, and we have a computer lab. It's fabulous. And we just try and teach them all the things, teach them how to speak Chinese. We teach them English, banking skills. We did a fashion show, just things that are extraordinary that will give them an opportunity to, see the world a little bit differently through different eyes. And then there's the Reflections Initiative, which is also in Nicaragua. My friend Jane had started that with her brother Jeff, and we have girls soccer teams, and that's also been life-changing for them.
What a great way to give back and help the people there.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this for such a long time that you were knighted as the Dame of International Order of St. George Grand Prior.
Yes. Yeah.
For all your work. And thank you, Patricia. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for continuing to do that. And if people need to reach out to you, they can do so and see how they can help in their own way through you to that work that you're doing there. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
One of the things we got to talk about in your art world is your very, very recent award that you got.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about that. That's so recent, and it's your top 60 masters of today and the artists of the year for 2023. So tell us a little bit about that. That was so exciting to see that, and what that has led you to, and what's coming up.
Well, Art Tour International magazine had named me Artist of the Year. In 2020, we were supposed to be actually in Firenze, in Florence, for the award ceremony, and then COVID hit, so that didn't happen. And then this year, they actually named me for 2023 Artist of the Year Top 60 Masters. And so I was in New York on Friday evening to receive the award and at the ceremony with a bunch of my friends. And that, it also then I was able to announce that I was the recipient of the Titan Award, which is, there are 10 of us that have been chosen. There will be a 60-minute documentary that's going to be on each of our lives, and that will become a series. And they're going to be coming here from New York to Canada to interview me, to be in my studio, go and visit and talk to some of my family, my friends. So I don't know what this is going to look like yet, but hopefully you'll see me drumming too, because I think I'll let myself do that for 90 seconds. Anyways, that's going to happen soon, end of August. And I think all the other ones, the artists who were chosen, I know they went to Rome. They've been to Hawaii to interview one of them. I can't even remember where the other ones are all from, but they, will be, I think, launching it hopefully and edited and completed through Apple TV in October, sometime in October. Yeah.
Congratulations on your newest award. And it's been such a pleasure watching you, your day there that you've posted and shared with us on social media. Yeah. And wish you all the best in the upcoming of the documentary, and can't wait to really see that.
Thank you.
Come to life and hear all about it. So congratulations on that.
Thank you, Shanta.
Yeah. You are also a speaker. I can't not mention that. So you're a speaker, and you've spoken on places like the Harvard Club, Carnegie Hall, and NASDAQ. And people can hire you for speaking engagements, right? So tell us a little bit about what your speaking topics are about, or if you'd like to share anything about your speaker world.
It's I had to really refine what it is that, I could share that would be meaningful to people, because there's so many, little directions. But I believe I created something called the Karmic Art Experience. So maybe a decade ago, I went to the University of Toronto and I did 2 3-year programs, Applied Mindfulness and Transformative Mindfulness. I've also been a practitioner studying the FPMT program, the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition. So spirituality has always been extremely important to me, to purification of being on this path as a human being. And how do you give back? Like, you can't You can't just walk into a room and, put your hand up and say, I'm healing you. It just doesn't work like that. Well, it can maybe, but not in my case. So I put together something called the Karmic Art Experience, where I would involve people using painting. So I don't want you to even know how to paint, because that's not the objective, but we use that as the tool. And you're given some paint. I take you through some meditations, some stories. I also do some suggestive, so that we create an experience that allows you to be so involved that you are listening to music. You're actually capturing your own thoughts. At the same time, you're truly getting to the essence of what it is that has been your obstacle, if there is an obstacle. And depending on the group, I've done this with the Canadian Olympic female hockey team. I've done the organization with a group of lawyers, multiple people who have been suffering from PTSD, and the challenge of getting them to understand it's tabula rasa. I try to bring you to a place where you don't know anything, you don't have a mind, and then I help you create and strengthen the synapses that can give you the comfort that you need by using it. And at the end, you have a painting, which is a representative of what it is that you've needed to feel or experience. So that, if I'm going to do, a talk, I will talk about complex simplicity, the healing nature of our own ability to heal within ourselves, the disciplines that are required, because life really is having discipline. We have to be good at what we do, so we need to practice, and even compassion and kindness is a practice. You have to do it over and over and over. And if you think you've done enough, you haven't done enough. So that's become part of this conversation that I like to have.
That's awesome. That's really good. Life is a journey, just like travel. And I like to weave a little bit of travel in it. You've traveled all over the world in various places at various times. Other than Cambodia, I know Cambodia is near and dear to your heart, but other than Cambodia, what are the couple of places that you visited that you've just loved, and why?
Yeah, so I'm also on the board of the Sir Edmund Hillary Foundation, and had an opportunity to go to Nepal. And we have a school and a hospital there in the Solo Khumbu Valley. But I went to Kathmandu and then a few other places. But from that trip, I also had the opportunity to be with Lama Glen Mullen. And Lama Glen Mullen is the world's leading Tibetologist. He's written over 37 books translated. And our small group went to Tibet with him. That was beyond a life-changing experience. It was just under a month that we were gone. We went daily into many, many different caves. We went into the Chimpuk Mountains and areas where you're actually fighting nature. The elevation, again, is something that you have to acclimate to, and it was very, very challenging. But I have to say, I would go back if I could go back in a heartbeat. Tibet was such an unusual landscape, clear, pure air, energy, and just a sacred event of realizations. So standing, at the highest elevation that I could handle without an oxygen, mask, I think it clears your head, it clears your brain, but you come back feeling that the world is really there for you to experience. So, those are two of my auspicious places.
Yeah. And what a great way to say that must have been in less than a few weeks there, and seeing the place with the Tibetologist must have been just an amazing experience. I just can't imagine how wonderful it must have been.
He speaks, I think, if I could say he speaks 30 dialects and 30 languages, it's true. So, and he's so well known that when you would be with him, he has he wears, the robe and a long white hair. And everywhere, everyone knew who he was, and he could communicate in their dialect. A genius, he's just simply a genius. And so if I went again, I'd have to go be safe, because at the same time, there are obstacles. Of course, being in some of these areas and being with somebody who you trust and knows the lay of the land is really, really important. Yeah.
It is. It is. Yeah. On the flip side, what are the couple of places that you have not been to, and where would you like to go and why?
Yeah, so there's quite a few, but I think I went to Iceland for a short visit, and that was another one of those I have to go back and really change the thinking pattern for myself there. I loved it. I did go to Bhutan. I would go back to Bhutan for sure. And I think Ireland, Scotland, I have a massive calling to be there. And I've, never been to either of those two countries, which is kind of a shock because multiple times I've been, across the pond, and that just didn't happen. So those are definitely on the list.
Yeah, those are beautiful countries. And yeah, and it's just a hop, skip, and a jump for you from where you are, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Patricia, before we wrap it up, couple of things. What are the couple of items that you would, we've talked about so many things that have made a difference for you in your life, and you talked about stepping out and being confident in doing things, but other than, what are the things that you would like to leave our listeners with, just on either on their entrepreneur journey or just in their life journey, as how they can be a more fuller and accomplished person?
I think people need to retreat into themselves so they can stop complaining. I think that's I think complaining is, and this is something that, this word there's two parts to this actually. So complaining only rather than looking for solutions. I think if I had to take every single thing that happened to me and I wasn't able, to get beyond it, I would just be complaining all the time. But so that's a different perspective. But also, as Glenn Morshower has said, people have chronic opinionitis. And it's true. Like we all think that we're right, or our opinions really truly are the only one, or we want to defend them so profusely that we'll get ourselves into trouble doing it. So I think it's step back, be a listener. Everyone's entitled to their good opinion, their highest and best, and don't allow it to make such an impact on you that it alters the decisions that you feel inherently you need to make. Because if I had have listened to people tell me, no, you could never do this. No, you could never do that. This will never happen, from your mouth to God's ears, I'd be like, okay, God was listening. I'm sorry. If there is anything I can say to people, it's listen to your own heart, your adamantine particle. Listen to yourself and value what you feel, because you really are feeling yourself, and that makes a difference.
Great thoughts. Great thoughts. Just listening. I think we've been given that to listen more, and we are so prone to, like you said, you opinionated, right? Give our opinion before really listening. So great thoughts to leave us with, Patricia. So if people need to get in touch with you, they can reach you at your website there.
Yeah.
So reach out to Patricia, check out her artwork, follow her on social media. And, she's such an amazing, as you've heard, she's got so many life journeys that she's shared with us, and how she's overcome those, as well as step and taken action to reach her where she is today. So thank you, Patricia. Thank you for joining us. And I hope we'll get you back here again sometime soon to see where the documentary has led you to and what what you accomplish in the next few years, we'll definitely get you back on the show sometime.
All righty. Thank you so much, Shanta. It's been a privilege and a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. So thank you for joining us today. And I'd love to, if you could just go ahead and share, like, and comment, and really share the Patricia's website and go and check her out and reach out to her and check her artwork. She's such an accomplished artist, and I'd love for you to take a look at what she's doing in her world today. So thank you for joining, and until next time, we'll